Now being recorded.
So today we have conference 16 of phase B, and our goal here is in this conference is to know the infradimensional levels of the planet Earth, known as hell. So in phase A, we saw the infradimensions on psychology, which are in our inner world. But here we are going to see the infradimensions inside the planet Earth and see how they're formed and the different subdivided circles that exist. They are 9 circles, and this conference it is the first part of 2 parts, where we are going to see the circles from the first to the fifth Dantesque circle. So, and the process of each one of them, the defects as well as the scenes of each circle, and these circles are called Dantesque because after this is after the name of the creator of this masterpiece, Dante Alighieri, who was born in Italy, and he left us this great masterpiece that most of us have heard of at some point, even though for most of us, this masterpiece could represent just an epic poem from the 14th century or a science fiction book that is part of the universal literature, or just a beautiful story that tells us the process through the purgatory and hell. Truth is that Dante Alighieri's it's a masterpiece. I'm sorry, he's a master of the White Lodge, and he used this masterpiece, the Divine Comedy, to show us, to show humanity the reality of the process that it's lived in the internal world. So all the information in this masterpiece is completely real. So, and this anyone can verify for themselves through a practice of astral projection. Dante shows us that under the submerged layers of the planet Earth, hell does exist. And it shows us how it is divided into 9 circles in the form or shape of a funnel or cone. And that the bigger circles, as the sun becomes smaller and smaller, giving it that shape of a funnel or cone where the souls are purified. So when a person has finished their 108 existences and has exhausted all of their opportunities to self realize, they to self realize, they go through this process of which all the defects descend and disintegrate, circle by circle, to the point that it reaches the end of the circles and the essence is liberated, is free. Um, but having lost the opportunity of rescuing the wisdom and consciousness of its defect willingly with the tool of psychological death, because it was done mechanically by the Dantesque circle. So we having problems with the slide. Okay, so when we don't do this work for ourselves, because nature will do it for us. So it will disintegrate our defects, but with pain and torture. So these infradimensions, it is a way of hell, of cleansing. It's a cleansing process. So this is, and there is physical proof of this by science. In Russia, there's the Kola super deep borehole that was dug 7.6 miles deep at the end of the 80s, where terrible screams and horrifying sounds were documented. They were recorded with microphones. So, so this is okay. So we are going to move on to the first circle. The first circle, it is the Dantesque circle. It is the submerged sphere of the moon. And here my slide is stuck. Okay. So okay. So so here we are going to move to the first submerged sphere of the moon. Here it is. So the first circle is subjected here to 96 laws, and these laws are a level of conditioning or psychological heaviness. As you can say, this region is called limbo or hall of hell because it is the hallway of hell. It is the before a hell, and it is formed by all the caverns and tunnels of the planet joined together astrally. Here we're going to find all of the people that have not finished their 108 existences and have lives still to live. In this place are found all the ones who just died and are waiting for a new physical body to be born again. So here the deceased person continues making retrospectives, recapitulating of all the existence that they just lived. And because they never awakened their consciousness in life, after death, they continue to be unconscious also. So they imagine, they recreate their family, their friends, and the same things that they had in life, and never realizing that they passed away. So we can travel and verify this in an astral projection and talk to one of them and verify how these people who have just died, uh, the same way they were unconscious in life, they continue to be unconscious after death. So because they never awakened their consciousness while they were alive. So we may see some of them also buried halfway, and this represents that they are getting ready to descend into the lower circles. So here we find the ones that have not been baptized, and when we say baptized, we are not referring to a ritual where most of us are familiar with, which is to have water poured onto the head, mostly on newborns inside a church and inside a church. And it is after belief that the child now has the right to enter heaven, that is saved, and in case it is to pass at an early age, and then is now called a Christian. So to be baptized has a much deeper meaning. To be baptized, it is to raise the waters through sexual transmutation, which is to raise the sexual energy, which is our waters to our head, to the crown, to the crown of the head. So this is the circle of the lazy. And this is because most people did not do this work due to their laziness. And sloth, it is what reigns in this circle, in this sphere, and this submerged sleep. So this is found under the Earth cortex, I'm sorry, but not in this third dimension. This is why we say infra dimension. So here are all the human beings that do not have solar bodies because they never created them, and they are the sincerely mistaken who believed that could realize and find liberation without the need of sexual magic. So here are the unbaptized that wander the caves of limbo in loneliness with desperation to meet God. Okay, so here now we have the second circle, second Dantesque circle. This is the submerged sphere of Mercury. And in this sphere of Mercury, we see that this circle is subjected to 192 laws. And here the heaviness is much more dense because of the number of laws. And here we are going to find the egos of lust. They are the defects of fornication. And this place has a well-defined characteristic, and it is that it has very strong winds that represent all the animal-like passions that provoke an astral wave or an astral tide. So this tide or wave are the perpetual boiling negative passionate forces which originate the astral tides. So these are the tides Where's my little okay, here? It is. So here are the types. This is the region where humans' understandings do not work anymore, any longer. Okay. Um, they do not longer reason. So nothing controls them. They let themselves be carried away by all of their animal-like pleasures, beast-like violence, instincts that are found here. Here are all the fornicators who love to reach orgasm and ejaculation and enjoy extracting their sacred sperm from their organisms, from their bodies, and they hate any kind of chastity, anything that can taste of chastity, and they cohabitate incessantly. Here dwell millions of human creatures with abominable, uh, with the Kunda buffer organ fully developed and already turned into demons because of this. Their fornication has strengthened the organ, and in this circle, there is no possibility of leaving. It is very rare for a master to descend there and find a spark who is sincerely, who repents and wants um, to change, to be rescued. So the last is the fornication is the foundation of this ego in here. And so here they are forced to fornicate until the defect is destroyed. So the souls in here are endlessly blown away as in a spiraling in the winds of a violent storm. Okay, so this is where lasciviousness mixes with impetus of violence. And like I said, millions of human beings. Now we're going to move on to the third Dante circle. And the third Dante circle, mm, we have it is subjected to 384 laws. And here we are going to find a hurricane like wind, but instead of a constant, incessant rain, like the previous circle, now here it is cold, black, murky water. It's like a rotting smell that emphasizes the psychological defect here. In this circle, which is of pleasure, it is we'll find all the bars, the brothels, the orgies, all of the people that have lived from orgy to orgy, from tavern to tavern, immersed in pleasure, in feasting, in drunkenness, in bacchanals, in banquets, and all of these know too well that feeling the day after a night of drunkenness. It's called hangover in a lot of terms in different cultures, but it is the same. And those who continue on the path of vice until they collapse, they try to recover from that hangover and continue to drink. Because after the pleasure, we see how there comes pain. So the circle that of the people who are here in evolution can hear also the dreadful, horrifying barking sounds of Cerberus, the infernal dog. Cerberus, it is a dog of hell with his three heads and his true cruel jaws represents all of the pleasures and animal-like passions, infrasexual violence, and this dog with three heads is always torturing the ones who are involved in this region. So here are all the pleasures of all times and ages, the pleasures of ancient Rome, for example, with all of the thieves, the adulterers, the degenerates, the dwelling drunkards, the drunks, I'm sorry, drug addicts, lesbians, and all of the sexual indulgences of sexual pleasure. So, and everything related to false beauty and what is false harmony. This is the infradimension of Venus. So, at the infradimensional part of the true beauty, this is the inferior aspect of it. So, this is overindulgence in its most negative way. So, here are all the eyes of pleasure that infradimensional Dante circle. So here, the pestilence, and we come to realize that after all the pleasures, there is only left pain. So this is the rain, what symbolizes the bitterness and misery. So this is what is found here for the ones who give in to their pleasures and do not give it up. Because of their cold nature, the souls of gluttony suffers the coldness of ceaseless icy rain. Okay, from orgy to orgy. And so now we move on to the fourth circle. And on the fourth circle, this is the submerged sphere of the sun. And in the submerged sphere of the sun, this circle is subjected to 768 laws, and this circle is much heavier. So here we are going to see more laws, and we are going to find all the unbalanced ones. Unbalanced in its two types, which is the squanderers and the miserable ones. The which are the two extremes, the extremely wasteful and the extremely greedy in all of the ways of wastefulness and greed that there are. So here, what's to learn is the real equilibrium, the real balance of any violation of the equilibrium brings painful consequences. That is to say, a person wastes their money, they waste their energy, they might feel generous, but in reality, they're violating the law of God. So here the person doesn't know that the spenders and the greed. Here we learn we have to know that to remain faithful to the scale of balance. And when we alter this balance, it takes from others by withholding and saving it for himself. In the case of the greedy, and it violates the law of equilibrium, the law of balance of the scales that represent the sun. So in the long run, it causes a real imbalance in retaining it properly for the economy to impoverishing his fellow beings. And the squanderer, even though he may feel generous or that he's doing good, is producing also an imbalance because he's not letting the economic he's causing an economic harm. So this is why it is urgent for us to work with the law of the eternal trogo auto ecocratic cosmic process, which is the law of the ecocratic law trogo auto to hinder I'm sorry, not to hinder economic balance and not to harm ourselves and others. So we can do this by accumulating things excessively. For example, we can hoard material things as girls who hoard shoes that we are never going to wear, and compulsive hoardness to another extreme. And when we fill our houses with unnecessary things, the spender, the squander, and who's selfish. Okay, now we move on to the fifth Dante circle, submerged sphere of Mars. The submerged sphere of Mars, we have this circle is subjected to 1,536 laws. And here we're going to find a type of self that is even heavier than the others. Here, all of the eyes of anger. Here, the suffering is a lot bigger, is much greater because of the type of selves that are found here. We are going to find the selves of pride, the proud selves, the arrogant selves, murderers, violent, the destroyers, all the blasphemers who curse, all the destructive selves, all the destructive selves that the eyes of hatred, the selves of revenge, those of self-consideration, people who among them they hurt themselves to and make threats to each other. So the sad thing is that most of these people feel good and righteous, and none of them could even suspect for a single moment that they are doing wrong, or they can feel very virtuous and even holy, and they do not suspect that they're in the path of darkness and in any way that they're going astray. So here we're going to see ourselves in our defects divided in two: the attacker and the attacked. Okay, so the arrogant, naughty, the naughty, howdy, the proud, I'm sorry, murderers, violent, destructive, the blasphemers who curse, people who full hate, revenge, self-considered people, people who hurt each other, the wicked and perverse who make threats to threaten. Okay, so all of these people, like I said, I believe they're doing well, and here there's very something very particular that we are going to see ourselves in our defects divided in two: the attacker and the attack. The one attacking the self is chasing the attacked self, and of the anger chases the self of fear, which is the other aspect of wrath, of anger, but in the aspect of fear. And here we are going to feel anger and fear at the same time. The attackers are going to attack or the attackers, and in this circle the most awful feeling is running away from part of oneself when one defect is trying to kill the other because it feels hate. And this is the circle where all the defects of wrath and hate, so intense hatred, this is what makes this circle torturous and horrible. So one psychological defect is being chased by another psychological defect, and one feels the horror of running from oneself. So we can see this from many angles, with many eyes, from various angles, according to the eyes, all of the horror of horrors that is unspeakable and nameable, and the dreadful feeling that cannot be explained with words. So that cannot be explained. So this is an endless battle of wailing souls that takes place in this murky swamp. So the invitation here, um, uh, this is the circle of Mars. The invitation here um, is is for us to understand that each of these devilish cells carries with them a certain well-defined percentage of our consciousness, and and mm, and if we do not eliminate these defects willingly, nature is going to do it for us. And after pleasure comes pain. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Muchas gracias. Gracias, Walter, Carla, Ilse, y quién más estuvo aquí. Y ya, muchas gracias. Thank you. I got an audience. I got an audience today. Okay, stop recording. Okay.